welcome to the Unknown Webcast. This is just a bit of a trigger warning for those who believe words are more injurious than sticks and stones. I really am so conservative, I can't turn left even when I'm driving.
Nope.
Now I'm lost. In addition to giving trigger warning to our viewers, Ron Hensel and I both drink coffee for your protection.
Yep.
This week, Amy Spreeman joins us with a question. Is false teaching infiltrating your church through music? My name is Don Vino. I'm president of Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. in Wonder Lake, Illinois, which produces the Unknown Webcast. And our senior researcher is Ron Hensel, who will introduce the sponsors of today's webcast. And here is Ronnie Baby.
Greetings from sunny Florida, where the palm tree came out, saw its shadow, and now we have 12 more months of summer. Our sponsor for this edition of the Unknown Webcast is the Heresy Conservation Board, ensuring sustainable errors for the 21st century and beyond. The Heresy Conservation Board. Our regular legal disclaimer, our guest on today's webcast, insert name here, that would be Amy Spreeman, has no connection whatsoever to any of the satirical content of the Unknown Webcast, here referred to as the webcast, although we probably will not mention it again. This satirical content includes any and all commercials and credits, puns, smart remarks, or anything else on my phone has the definition of satire. In the meantime, Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. bears no liability for or responsibility for anyone's opinions regarding this satirical content. Notice, the opinions expressed on this webcast are ours and should be yours too. If you enjoy it or if it really annoys you and you want to inflict it on someone else to ensure your continued access, please go to midwestoutreach.org, click the yellow donate button, and contribute as you feel led. And as you do, never fear, this webcast is Y2K compliant. And don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite video channels. And now, our very special guest, Amy Spreeman. All the adoring fans are here just for you.
Hey guys.
Hello, Amy. How are you?
Howdy.
I'm doing great.
All right, Ron. Take it away.
What's that?
We got echoing. Take it out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to stop sharing. Okay.
Okay, good.
So that only happens when I have a presentation with sound, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, because you have that whatever.
Okay. So then
It's a technical issue that they don't seem to be able to fix right now. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Amy, I'm so glad. This is the first time we've actually met and talked.
Yes, in person.
I've watched you from afar, and you're involved in writing with like 3 different places, aren't you?
I am now, yes. Bereanresearch.org is my main site that I've been writing there. Well, I actually founded that site in 2015 as I was leaving another radio ministry and needed a place to put my stuff. So that's where that is. And then I'm also over at Naomi's Table Bible Studies for Women, where it's a repository of Bible studies from the Bible, not other people's books. I think women really need that. And then I do a podcast weekly with Michelle Leslie over at a wordfitlyspoken.life. And I love that .life, better than .org or .com for sure. But yeah, we talk about issues affecting the church and things that women need to know to be discerning and looking to Christ, not taking our eyes off of him. And it's grown. We've done that since 2019. And that's an exciting one. We'll have to have you two on there.
Yeah, well, we'd love it. It'd be great fun.
Yes.
So before we get into this topic, what got you interested in apologetics?
Oh boy, I'd have to go back to a church that I was in right around 2008, and there were, if you can imagine, it's kind of a micro mini church up here in northern Wisconsin, and if you can imagine all the different movements that you've talked about on your podcast and that I've written about over at Berean Research, they all kind of came into this church, and I saw firsthand some of the things that I had no idea what discernment was all about. I had barely started to crack open open my Bible at the time, and my husband and I saw all these different things come in. New Age and New Apostolic Reformation was there, although I didn't know that that was a thing or that it was wrong at the time. All sorts of things, sorcery. I mean, you name it, it was there. And so I started as a writer myself, coming out of kind of broadcast journalism, and I love to write, and I love to write articles that help people. I started really thinking, well, what if I could use my writing to help people understand what these are all about? And so I started doing that, and realized very quickly that you don't make friends doing that.
No.
But that's okay, because I just felt like I really needed to be able to share with people who are into these different movements that, these things are actually harmful, and they will lead you on a path away from Christ and into something else entirely. And that really concerned me. And when you have loved ones who are being deceived, as maybe you or I once were, that's important. It's important to pull them back and to tell the truth. So.
It is. I grew up, my father was an atheist. He wasn't a philosophical atheist. He just didn't, he wanted to live a particular way, and he didn't want God to interfere, basically.
Right.
So I became a Christian after 3 years after I was married, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And we got involved with this because my wife had a passion to reach Jehovah's Witnesses. So it was just more or less to reach her friends.
Yeah.
And then it grew into something beyond that. We met up with Ron, in part because we had gotten so many calls about a guy named Bill Gothard.
Mm.
And at first, Ron and I were talking about it, we're going, no, he's kind of legalistic, but as far as we know, he's pretty straight Orthodox, right?
I had some suspicions because I had come out of a rather spiritually abusive, cultish type situation, and the guy who was leading it claimed to have once worked for Bill Gothard. And I wondered I was actually in the middle of researching that connection and not coming up with much. And you came back from St. Louis, Personal Freedom Outreach Convention or something.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And your friend from Brick, New Jersey, I forget his name.
Richard Fisher.
Richard Fisher had done a presentation on that, and I told you, well, I just happen to be, looking into that right now, and went from there.
Yeah, so we got, and at first we were like hesitant because we're a mission to cults and non-Christian religions. That's really what we are.
Yes.
And when you start dealing with stuff in the church, as you point out, people, they don't like you. Well,
It's true.
Frankly, I don't care that much anyway.
Yeah.
So, but
by the mid '90s, Gothard's, let me put it this way: not only his popularity had waned, but his footprint in evangelicalism was reduced to almost nothing. I mean, when I told Walt Elwell, who lived in Princeton, Illinois, that I was doing this on the side, he goes, "Oh man, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time."
Yeah.
So he went underground.
Right, so we spent 6 years really trying to correct him. That's what we were trying to do. To no avail, which is how the book then came about. And then about 2000, we had another interesting thing happen. As we're dealing with cults and non-Christian religions and reaching out to them, I got a phone call one day from someone, a woman in a church, to say, has Gwen Shamblin changed her doctrinal statement of faith? And I went, I'm not sure who that is. Can you tell me why? Well, it was a diet guru, and I don't care that much about diet, so I never paid attention. And so I said, let me do some checking. I'll get back to you. And I looked at the website, and there was a problem in her doctrinal statement. I figured, well, she's probably not really theologically astute. I'll offer to give her a hand to rewrite it, to clear it up, only to discover when I called, I actually talked to her directly, that she said, she started on the I'm a false teacher because Jesus never claimed to be God sort of thing. And so I thanked her for her time. I hung up, and Ron and I drafted a short press release, figuring no one's going to pay attention because churches are more interested in how can I get more people in the door than are they learning sound doctrine. There's a problem there. So we posted it, and then Christianity Today picked it up within an hour. They called her to verify what we had said, if it was true or not. And then she said the most amazing thing. She said, women don't care about doctrine. They just want to lose weight.
Oh, well, maybe some. You know what? I actually Gwen Shamblin is a name. When you said that, I kind of had a reaction like, well, I know that name because she was one
Yeah,
of the first true heretics I ever learned about. And
yeah.
it all came from the diet book that, what was it called? The Way Down Diet. And I
Way down
remember,
workshop. Way
yeah,
down
Way
workshop.
Down. And I
Well,
picked that
that's
up at the
that.
church library and started following her
It was
because, you know,
everywhere. She was in 30,000 churches across 60 denominations, and we put that out with it. And when Christianity Today then published what she said, women don't care about doctrine, they just want to lose weight. My phone ran off the hook
mhm,
from people, women around the country going, I am not an airheaded Barbie doll. I care about doctrine. How do I get out of my church today? And
yeah,
so it happened. She had a conference scheduled for Chicago like 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. Her membership jumped from over 1 million followers to like 400
yeah,
in
wow.
the space of a month. It was unbelievable.
That's good. Unfortunately, I believe that she no longer is able to be corrected. She
No, she's
died
not.
in a
I,
plane crash with her
yep.
husband and a couple other people, I guess. And but yeah, she ended up. I looked her up after long after the whole diet way down thing, knowing that that's not right. And I looked her up, and here she had started this cult, and people were getting bamboozled in a true cult. I mean, leaving
Right.
everything behind to join this thing. Wow, yeah, really, I know there's a documentary out there, that I've seen on her and
Three
her.
parts. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. 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 So it's been for us an interesting adventure. We really would rather see the churches do better at watching for false teaching
Yes,
because it comes in all shapes and manners, pervades you in um, not taking care in women's ministries, for example, in men's ministries, to critique the material you're going to be using and the teacher that's teaching it.
yes,
This is
amen.
also true with music. Now, I don't know how you feel about this. In my opinion, I think whoever is leading worship should be at least as theologically astute, if not more theologically astute, than pastors.
Yeah,
And I believe that for this reason. When a pastor's preaching, you tend to listen a little more carefully. When you're involved in worship, your mind basically just opens up to whatever's coming in. There's no filters.
right.
So you can generate a lot of false teaching through music to those who are unaware.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. I will just say a little personal note here. My husband and I started checking out a church in our area and noticed that there were uh, no songs from heretical sources in the worship music. And we'd gone a couple of times and still no, Bethel, Hillsong, Elevation, none of that. And ended up asking the worship leader about that. I wanted to know if it was intentional. And the worship leader said, "Let me stop you right there. We don't play any of that. We know about the NAR. We don't want any of that in our church service." And I thought, oh, thank heavens, that's a wonderful thing. So I wish more worship leaders would be in tune to that.
Yeah. Well, you start off with, I want to bring this up so people can see the article. Your article is Bethel, Hillsong, Elevation, Worship, Music. And the links are in the description for all of this stuff. I just have to remember how to, oh yeah, here we go. Share screen, pick entire, go boom, and there it is. And
Yes.
you start off with should a church use worship music from sources that are proven to be part of a spirit of error and falsehood Jesus warns about? What if the song itself is biblical? Does the source matter? Should a song be judged on its own merits and not the source?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
don't you
These
start off with that?
Well, I would say that these are things that people are asking and that church leadership boards are struggling with because their congregants are asking about it. How do we shape our worship experience for the people coming in? What is worship? Well, obviously it's more than just music, but the music sets the tone for the rest of the service. So when the gathering of the saints come in to your church, building, if you will, everything that they experience has to point back to Christ. And, so a lot of church leaders are struggling with, well, there's some very popular songs out there. People are requesting them or not requesting them. But most of the music licenses that churches have to purchase, I believe they're called LCCI, for Sunday morning worship services, come from
CCLI.
Thank you. They come from the biggest of the organizations, and I won't even call them churches, but like I said, Bethel Church in Redding, California, Hillsong United in Australia, and Elevation Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. Those are the big three. So most of the music, the modern music that people bring in, the most popular music that people are paying for, come from those three sources, and there are more, of course, but those are the big guys on the block. Those are the ones, those are the gang members in a kind of a bad neighborhood, if you will. So, and all three of these organizations and their leadership have proven over and over again to teach a completely different gospel than the doctrine taught by Jesus and his apostles. And so I went about in this article to try to find out, what are they teaching? What are these sources? Because I've been researching them since, probably for the last 15 years. So it didn't just come up suddenly for me, but a lot of people might think, well, I've never heard this before. This information has been out there. I'm not the only one who's been kind of sounding the alarm, but there are a lot of problems with these three big organizations. And once you break it down and figure out how are they heretical, is that even a word that you would use to describe them? I don't use that word lightly. I really don't. But these three organizations do fit into that. And once you break down what it is they teach, it's pretty obvious that you don't want to be singing music from those sources, even if the music is biblically sound, because of course you're paying for it and you're giving it the green light.
Can we get into some of the nuts and bolts of what makes them heretical and what makes the music, the lyrics heretical?
Absolutely. So, and that's not, so in this article, I broke it down by 5 reasons that you should not sing this music. And the first reason is the doctrine that these apostate teachers are bringing in through their music into your church. And so the doctrine is really important. And these are multi-million-dollar organizations, by the way. They're not just fly by the night. Every once in a while they'll have a hit song. So you've got Bethel, Hillsong, Elevation are the most well-known teachers of the Word of Faith movement, the name it and claim it, little gods movement, prosperity gospel. If I do this, then God will bless me with riches and I'll never be sick, and that kind of thing. And so I put together some links on, Bill Johnson, for instance, who is the lead guy over at Bethel Church in Redding, California. He is an apostle, and he teaches the prosperity gospel, and so does his right-hand man, Chris Vallotton, who is the prophet there. And so all three of these organizations believe and teach that their leaders are big A apostles, not just sent ones. That we're all kind of sent ones, right? But big A apostles who have as much authority as the apostles in the Bible, as well as prophets, like I mentioned. Even though the prophecies that come out of these organizations are quite often wrong. And we know what the Bible says about, if a teacher teaches falsely, he is a false teacher, right? So, but it's also a signs and wonders dominionist movement known as the New Apostolic Reformation, or NAR for short. And I believe you have covered that on previous podcasts.
We have, yeah.
Yeah, but this is a dominionist movement that wants to take over the 7 mountains of influence in our culture. And so they have apostles and prophets, and their words are more important than scripture. It's a horrible movement, and it's entrapped a lot of people. Some of the hallmarks are dreams and visions, manufactured signs and wonders, all to control people, to make sure that they come under the umbrella, if you will, because we were just talking about Gothard. Well, now the umbrella isn't Jesus Christ. Now the umbrella is the prophets and apostles of these NAR churches. And all three of these organizations place this huge emphasis on dreams and visions and extra biblical revelation. They're hearing right from God, and you need to mind what they say, because their words are more important than scripture. And they have trips to heaven, face-to-face conversations with Jesus, visits by angels, that kind of thing. It's really unbiblical, I would say.
Yeah, well, the heavenly tourism industry is really quite popular
Yeah.
these days. Yeah. Uh, so one of the things that comes to my mind here is, because we want to delve more into that,
Yeah.
is I said before we started here that I had told a friend that if he insisted on using these kinds of songs, because he would say, "Well, I filtered it out. I only use those that have biblically sound lyrics." I said, "Yes, but you don't understand. People get the idea that we're giving our stamp of appeal as a church on their music,
Yeah.
and so if you put a skull and crossbones on the song, the title song, then they would realize that there's poison out there in their songs, uh, and they may not be as readily interested in going to buy a whole album or anything like that, much less to get involved with the church's teaching." I said it's sneaky, because if they think it's okay, and then they start buying other materials from the church, you're going to have a lot of heresy floating around in the church here.
Exactly. And there are people who not only purchase the music and listen to the music, but all of a sudden they're following some of these groups. And then they end up going to their conferences, right? It's like, I
Right.
really like these guys. I want to go see their concert. Or, hey, Bethel's got a conference on signs and wonders, or whatever it is, or how to prophesy over your friends, that kind of thing. And then they end up going to these things and getting sucked down into the horrible muck of what Bethel really is. There's a streaming service called American Gospel TV, AGTV,
Right.
that
Right.
does a tremendous job breaking down. I think I don't know how many parts that they have now on Bethel alone. But just, and I picked that one because I believe Bethel is the worst of the three. None of the three is good, but Bethel is kind of ground zero for this new apostolic Reformation movement. And part of what they have is this thing called the supernatural. Oh gosh, now I'm blanking out. but it's their school of supernatural ministry. So it's kind
Right.
of, they call it Christian Hogwarts for a reason.
Yeah.
And it really is. And young people go to this, and they'll
Right.
spend a huge amount on tuition, and it's a 3-year program designed to have you become either an apostle or a prophet, or quite often a music leader, bringing in these ideas, and you are trained right off the get-go. You are trained to prophesy, even falsely, over your friends. In fact, we have Bill Johnson on tape saying that very thing. He's saying in a video, we want them to make mistakes. We want them to prophesy. And if you don't do it wrongly, you're not going to graduate, because we want you to feel what it's like to be wrong. That's false preaching. That's a
Right.
false prophecy. And we know in the Bible how false prophets are treated. So we're not to have anything to do with false, right? So.
Well, I wouldn't think so. We have a question here, if I can. There we go. Get my question is, Amy, how do you feel about Vineyard Music and the expanse of their worship song catalog used across the globe, considering Wimber and uh, route that Vineyard went? Oh, the route that Vineyard went.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, in your discernment of music, if you look at Vineyard Music, you're going to find a lot of it that is biblically sound, as you will with Bethel, Hillsong, and Elevation Music. Some of it seems so holy, but when you understand kind of the ins and outs of where Vineyard, where that whole movement went, you're going to want to say, maybe that's not something that we want influencing, or that we want to pay for. We don't want to financially support this with our members' offerings on Sunday morning. So that's my thought on it.
Well, and definitions, say it sounds okay, because a lot of it does.
Yeah.
But doesn't it sometimes come down to definitions of the words because they're having different definitions to the words
Yeah,
than we normally understand it.
exactly.
So I've tried to explain sometimes to people to say, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society puts up some amazingly good materials sometimes.
Yeah,
Should you start using the watchtowers in Sunday schools to teach your people?
right. Or
And there are,
Mormons, Mormons do
or
the same
Mormons.
thing. They sing
That's
about Jesus. So, of course, a pastor would not want to have a Mormon song if he knew that it was from a Mormon group singing, or playing in that service. I go so far in the article as to say, hey, what if Adolf Hitler wrote a Christian song back in the day? Yeah, the lyrics sound good. Well, of course you're not going to. I use the extreme as a preposterous setup here because, of course, you're not going to play something by Adolf Hitler even if it sounds good. But that's exactly the kind of thing we're doing when we invite music in from apostate sources like these.
right, right, because they do affect your people.
Yeah,
One of the things that I try to, especially pastors, help them understand because many of them, I want to be careful not to pick on the church too much because
sure.
pastors have a hard job. It's hard
Yeah,
to keep up with all this stuff, right? Uh, most of us get our worldview, frankly, and our ideas by osmosis. It just filters in through the air almost. It's in the books we read, the magazines we read, the television we watch, the films we watch, the people we hang around with. We embrace ideas without them going through checks and balances to say, is this true? And then
yeah,
we wake up and we have this belief, and we don't even know where it came from. And when it's challenged, it's a little scary because now we're invested in that belief, whatever it is.
right. And
Makes it
people love
difficult.
it, right? They love their beliefs.
They do. They totally do.
Yeah.
So, uh, financial support. That's number two.
Yes, that's the second reason that you really don't want to play these songs because, the licensing fees paid by, your hard-earned money, your congregations, your gift to use this music financially actually supports these organizations. And, the music person at your church may say, well, it's only a tiny little bit though. Yeah, it's only a tiny little bit of yeast, but that yeast spreads. And so, what they do with that money, by extension, all of their activities are sponsored by your church. So, conferences, books, webinars, everything that you can think of. And every time your church performs one of these worship songs, there is that little monetary benefit to the artist through licensing. And so, according to the CCLI, that Christian Copyright Licensing Institute, 7 of the top 10 modern songs sung in churches today usually are affiliated with either of those, any of those three, Bethel, Hillsong, and Elevation.
That's a lot of small little amounts
Yes.
combined into one large amount.
Well, when you think of all the churches in the United States alone, not to mention worldwide, singing these songs and having to play them, having to pay these licensing fees, wow, that just adds up tremendously. And like I
It,
said, these are multi-million dollar, in some cases, billion-dollar organizations.
they are. They are. They're
Yeah.
they're big, and they are powerful
Yes.
because they wreak success. They look like success, and who doesn't want to be a successful church?
Right. Right, and part of the prayers and part of the influence of these places like the Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry, that's what they do. They teach you that if you want to be successful, you have to do A, B, and C, and you have to be bringing these ideas in to the people that you influence. And they talk about your platform a lot in these organizations.
So, a question: does the money go to the artist or to the label?
I believe it goes to the whatever 501(c)(3) organization, and it's not well, it would be for profit in that case.
Right.
So it would go, it does filter. So it's not going right to the artist, of course.
Right.
So it could go to the label and it could go to, the organization that owns the label, and then that gets filtered down from there.
Right. Right. Maybe that gets filtered down. Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
We don't really know. But
Yeah, we don't know how the artists are paid.
right, but we're most concerned about false teaching and heresy.
Yeah.
And we have a sponsor that is concerned about that as
We're
well.
very concerned because you know what? The situation is dire. According to the latest research, at the present rate of consumption, our supply of heresies will be completely depleted by 2050. The consequences will be disastrous. If this happens, most cults will close their doors by the end of the century, and most heretical websites will completely disappear from the internet. Not to mention the fact that 75% of what passes as Christian TV program will disappear from the airwaves and cable. What do we do, Don? What kind of ministry will we have? The solution is simple: heresy recycling. Whether you're online, visiting a church, or out at the mall, you can do your part. Always look for the label, the HCB label, the Heresy Conservation Board, ensuring sustainable errors for the 21st century and beyond.
And there you have it.
That's lovely. I actually really, that's outstanding.
Gotta recycle those heresies. And you know what? I have to
Yeah.
admit that some people do a pretty good job of that.
Yeah.
They do. They absolutely do. Yeah.
Nothing new under the sun.
There's really not. As we see new heresies pop up, we go, that's actually that was around in the 3rd century. Now
Right.
that I think about
We
it.
just see them in different combinations. Combinations with other, like, okay, of the kind of eschatology that Jehovah's Witnesses have. I don't even know what kind of eschatology Arius had. I don't know if anybody knows, but they took Arian, Christology and combined it with their millenarian, let's call it that, the general kind of heresy that came out of Second Adventism in the early 19th century,
Yeah.
and took some blood transfusion stuff and just sprinkled it all around. There you go.
Just
So,
mix it all together, mix and match,
yes.
and it works. So, yeah, heresy is like everywhere.
Yeah.
Reason 3, the influence on your flock.
Yes, I will tell you that, and it hits people differently for sure. But another reason that you really don't want to be playing these songs is that the main objective of the worship music arm of Bethel, Hillsong, and Elevation is to intentionally attract and maintain their target audience of youth and young adults, the young people, that next generation up and coming, very important to them. And so they have said they want to introduce new audiences of Christian consumers to their movement and bring them in, all while making millions of dollars, of course. And so Bill Johnson, the founder and lead pastor of Bethel, has said that he sees Bethel music, including Bethel's Jesus culture. Yep, Jesus culture is right in there, as a tool to export NAR teachings into non-NAR churches, and it's working. And so I'll just read this little excerpt of Bill. He said, "Music bypasses all of the intellectual barriers, and when the anointing of God is on a song, people will begin to believe things they wouldn't believe through teaching." Isn't that something? I just can't even believe that
Pretty honest.
pastors would willingly bring that in, if they know that Bill Johnson has said that. So,
Well, and that's the point. They don't know that Bill Johnson said that because there's a level of trust that happens on what I like to call the good old boy network.
yeah.
Right? Church down the street, guy named Bill, let's say, good solid guy, Bible teacher, is using a certain kind of music, let's say, in his church, to seemingly good effect. And he's talking to his friend, pastor, and says, you might want to try this. This has been really helpful to our younger folks, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's in there. Well, he trusts Bill because Bill's a trustworthy guy. He's, loves the Lord, teaches Bible pretty clearly. And neither one of them really look at the organization behind the music because it's a lot of work. And it's trusted because it's everywhere. And so because it's everywhere, it must be okay. We have the same thing with Christian books, InterVarsity Press, Christian Press, right?
Yeah.
Once, maybe, I don't know what I would say it is today, they're pumping out Enneagram books like crazy.
Wow.
Thomas Nelson, trusted publisher, used to be same thing. Enneagram books. You want any occultic books like the Enneagram, you can get it right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that makes it difficult because pastors, again, they're busy. They cannot keep up with it.
They are busy and they have the hardest job in the world, like you said. And it's hard because a lot of their congregants, actually, well, maybe a handful of their congregants, depending, are very discerning and know about this stuff. But it never gets to the pastor or to the elder leadership team until it might be too late, until this stuff is already in the door. And then now they have to go and say, Pastor, I have some concerns, whereas if, and this is a kind of a pipe dream, but what if we took the discernment gifts of some of the people in the congregation who know about this stuff,
Right.
and they could kind of be part of the church, bring them in, don't kick them out the door. Don't say they are, critical or have a Jezebel spirit or something like that, which does happen quite frequently.
It
Bring
does.
them in, have them help in whatever way you like, but have them there as a resource so that they can watch for this stuff. Bible talks a lot about being a watchman and making sure that you're protecting your flock, right? So one of the ways that pastors can make sure that the enemy doesn't bring his lies in through the front door is by preaching the word, right? Preaching truly the text, making sure that it's exegeted correctly and all of that pastors do. But then hand in hand with that is make sure that your congregants are aware that there are false teachings. And you might always, I know that this has been kind of a thing to talk about, what if you had counterfeit money? And so people who work at banks study the real thing so that they can spot the counterfeit. And that is a good thing. I've got friends who actually have been in the banking business who say, yep, part of our training was we spent 20 hours looking at different bills and making sure we knew exactly what the real thing looked like, felt like, smelled like, and so that you can spot a fake. And now they even have those lights, you see the cashiers holding them up,
right.
and it's like, oh, I can see it's a fake. But hand in hand with that, even, bank managers will alert the tellers when there is false money out there so that they know to be on alert. And so I think those two things need to go hand in hand. Study what is real, and also know what the enemy is up to. Just be aware. You don't have to study it for a long time. You don't have to fill your head with the wiles of the enemy, but you do need to have kind of a basic understanding of how the enemy has been working in recent trends, things that are coming into the church, like the Enneagram, those kind of things. Because most people won't pay attention to that.
They don't, and by the time they even think about listening, they've become invested in it themselves.
Yeah.
So we have, in fact, one of these individuals that's on today came in contact with us because the church that they were attending, really good, solid church, when it, at one time, let's say, after the pastor retired and others came up, they started using this music.
Yeah.
And they had come out of a bad background. They kind of grew up word faithy. And so they went to the pastor to say, here's a problem. Well, the pastor not only didn't really want to pay attention to them, they resented that they were coming to them with
Yeah.
this issue. So they ended up leaving the church as a result of that.
That's tragic. Yeah.
It is. And we've had that with Enneagram. I cannot tell you how many people contact us, especially after our book came out, saying, I've gone to my pastor. I even took the book to your pastor, and he just said, I'm not even going to read it. They're just wrong.
Mhm. Yeah, and books like yours, online discernment ministries, get a bad rap. They're looked at with despair, and I guess that people just don't like pointing people to those. And you know, there are some bad actors out there who are pretty mean, shall we say.
Yes.
And I would say, you know, don't get into this discernment realm unless you truly care for the sheep and you truly love them. Because if you don't, if you're just out there trying to build a platform and trying to be right and trying to get clicks and that kind of thing, then you're really not pleasing to God. You need to be caring for the sheep in a way that's kind, but yet firmly speaking truth. We need more truth tellers.
Right. Right. And you're right. It takes kind of a more of an attitude of humility.
Yeah.
This is something I don't really want to have to tell you, Pastor, but here's this issue with this particular group, and I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And depending on how you present it, they might be more prone to listening to you, but that's not always the case. If they're invested in it, there's potentially embarrassment if they back up and go, "We were wrong to use that."
Yeah. I would suggest, and one thing that we tell listeners over at A Word Fully Spoken is make sure you ask permission. You know, see how bought in they are. But one-on-one with your pastor is a really good idea, or your teaching elder, and say, you know, I've got some concerns about something that's been said and something that's being taught or being played. Would you mind giving me a half hour? Can we schedule some time
Right.
where I can just share with you? And if they say yes, then they've given you their permission to listen. So it's better than coming up to them after the sermon and people are shaking hands, going out the door. I've got a bone to pick. You know, you don't
Yeah.
want to do it that way. You
Right.
want to make that meeting happen.
Well, I've had several that have contacted us on various issues, and as I walk through, here's the issues and here's why they're a problem. Uh, I often say something like this. Now, depending on your relationship with your pastor, what you may want to do is to take some of our material and say, I don't know enough about this. Could you help me make sure that I'm not going to be deceived?
Yeah.
Could you look this over and give me your opinion? Now, what that does is it makes me the bad guy, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm used to being the bad guy. Uh, and it takes them off the hook a little bit with their pastor. So that's are you still with us? I think you froze up. Oh, here she is. You froze up
froze up.
momentarily
Sorry about
there.
that.
That's okay.
It's cold up here in Wisconsin. That's my excuse.
Well, I usually tell people they want Presbyterian on us. They were too close to Ron for a
The Frozen Chosen, yeah.
moment. All right. Next, the green stamp of approval. Your green stamp of approval.
Yes. Well, when we play this music, what we're telling congregants who are gathered to sing is it must be safe because, you know, surely you've vetted this and you've given it your green stamp, so it's okay. I'm safe. I can go ahead and sing this. Some people may think that, or they may think, you know, maybe you haven't vetted this, and that's a whole different conversation. But you know, and we know that worshiping through music is a beautiful act, and it's uniting, and we trust our leaders to protect us from wolves in sheep clothing. So singing even these solid sounding songs tells the congregants that you've really done your work. You've checked these out. These are great songs to bring in a Sunday morning. And so if your church is leading music from a group that has theologically compromised the truth of the word, the church is actually lending your credibility to that source. So you're actually saying, you know what, Bethel, Hillsong, and Elevation, and all these guys, they're okay. So worshipers are having your green light to sing and enjoy this music from these sources because of that trust that's built up. You know, and when actually that trust is being broken right now. You know, you might feel comfortable enough. Hey, we sang this in church. I guess I'm going to go to check these reels on Facebook or Instagram, or you know, download some videos, purchase some music on Spotify, and maybe even follow the musicians and their theology because the worship team loves these guys. And so congregants quite often share the musicians' music videos on their own social media, and then they're actually they're complicit in spreading false teaching from these apostate sources. And
Right.
and you know how algorithms work, right? So you're watching these reels, you're on social media and you see these things, and you just pause a little bit to watch the whole video of this music, and you really enjoy it. Next thing you know, your whole feed is filled with that stuff, and that's how sneaky these things are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Last one you have in this lineup is reason 5: harming the hurting. Harming the hurting.
Yeah, I hear a lot from Christians who've come out of the NAR movement. On my website, Berean Research, a couple years ago I asked, hey, if you've come out of this movement, would you mind sharing your story, what you experienced, what finally opened your eyes, and how the Lord convicted you that this was not right. And I ended up with, over the course of a few years, I now have like 67 some odd testimonies that are on there. They're still coming in. And so some of the things that they tell me is that they're, when they were first drawn to the NAR movement, it was because of the music that they heard in church. And so they began, looking at the musicians, maybe downloading some stuff, joining conferences and that kind of thing. And there are quite a few testimonies from people who've actually signed up to pay tuition to the Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry. And so that's a problem, where students learn to perform miracles and that kind of thing. And those who come out of this program say that the music itself was the gateway into their involvement with the NAR, the New Apostolic Reformation. And it takes a lot of time for people to break free of just the devastation that's gone on in their hearts. I've talked before at conferences about how a lot of these NAR teachings actually will separate families, they'll split churches, and some people don't even ever come back to church. And that's just such a horrible shame. They never, they're done with the gospel. They don't want any part of it because of how hurt they've been. So it does take time to heal from that kind of thing. So imagine going to some new churches, or, you've moved to a new town and you need to find a new church. And the first thing you hear when you've, stood up to sing is a song that you sang in the NAR, and how devastating that is. And people will talk about how they just can't, either clam up, or they sit down, or they run out into the lobby, or their family leaves, or they never come back to that church, even if the church is otherwise biblically sound. I mean, you might have the best preaching in the world, but you're playing this music and people are so tuned off, and they're so hurt by it because of what they've been through. And so, they need to find a church that they can trust. So ex-NAR and Word of Faith followers say that they get triggered, they're spiritually harmed by seeing these. And why would we want to do that to them? So I would just say, there's thousands and thousands of other songs that you could sing. Some of them are even free, they're hymns. They pick up a hymnal. You don't even have to pay licensing fees for those. But even there are some that you do pay for that are just wonderful. They come from good, solid sources. Find them and watch, of course, because you never know. Somebody might go off the rails eventually. That's how it works, in the Christian life. There's always that turnover and new ideas come in. But man, we just don't need to sing these songs.
Yeah. The Colorado Caffeinated Crew weighs in and says, worship PTSD.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
So
It's
what
the same
in
thing.
worship, what can traumatize you in worship to qualify for PTSD? What kinds of things in these worship services can be traumatizing?
Well, if you've come out of a Bethel Light type of church, and you start listening, the type of church that has brought in full-on NAR teachings, the dreams, the visions, the teachings from Bill Johnson, the pastors go to their conferences, that kind of thing. People coming out of those churches, all they need to hear is the first few chords of a song, and they're just like, nope, I'm not. I can't do it. It's like here, it would be like somebody who coming out, like a veteran, who hears the gunshots and thinks, oh, and they're shocked for a minute because it takes them right back to where they were.
And so what's traumatic is, like, at the time they were doing it, were they necessarily being traumatized, or was it just the cumulative impact of the whole experience, finally realizing at the end of it all you've been duped?
Some of it is that. Some of it, though, people have been traumatized by coming out of these churches. They've been told, for instance, that, hey, you need to separate from your family members who aren't part of our church. So there's been
Yeah, yeah.
some spiritual abuse, spiritual manipulation of these members. You have to bring your children to this program, and they need to learn. Bethel actually has a Sunday school program where the Sunday school teacher actually says on tape, we teach we teach these 9 and 10-year-olds how to prophesy over one another. We teach them how to do that. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? And parents are told you have to have them in these programs. So, it depends on the extent of the spiritual abuse, but even if you've come out of it and you've been duped, that's still that feeling that you cannot trust the church that's bringing this music in, because you're going to go through this all over again, and nobody wants to be fooled again.
I think, I would personally find that, School of Miracles kind of attractive.
Yeah.
And, if I tried to perform a miracle, like, to turn the time back so I wouldn't be late for a meeting and it didn't happen,
Yeah.
I would find that pretty traumatic, or, try to walk on water and
Well, the
straight down.
promises of physical healing, that's a huge one too. You come to these schools
Yeah.
because I want to learn how to heal, but then I want to be healed, right? From whatever physical
Yeah.
thing that you're plagued with, and it doesn't happen, right?
Well,
So,
I know a case, a friend of mine, her sister, somewhere in Indiana, uh, had a friend who had cancer, and they all prayed over her, named it and claimed it, blabbed it and grabbed it, just say it, don't spray it. Well, anyways, so
yeah.
she didn't get better.
Mm,
The friend of my friend's sister.
yeah.
And what happened was they kept on having these meetings, laying hands on her and everything. And she kept getting worse. And
Oh,
then my friend's sister noticed that fewer and fewer people were showing up. And she noticed that over time, once, this lady was bedridden and the, my friend's sister would go to church, she found people like staying away from her, keeping their distance from
mm,
her, because there's something wrong with her faith and you're sticking with her. So there's something wrong with your faith.
Right.
mm.
And she basically tended to her, all the way up through her death. And nobody from that church came
Oh,
to the funeral. And she left that church. I think she left the church. So
mm.
yeah, that's a pretty painful uh, painful and traumatic experience. Yeah.
That's awful. That's just so heartbreaking to hear, and I know that happens
Yeah.
more often than we want to believe. But it's true that that kind of spiritual abuse, that if you don't, if you're not healed, you must have a demon, or you must not have enough faith. Lies from the pit of hell, but people believe them and they're just devastated. And so they try these things to get rid of the demon, go to demonology expunging schools or things like that, run by the NAR, or they just try to mentally, I need more faith. I need more faith. Well, that's not the cause of your financial problems. That's,
Right.
oh, there are mustard seeds for that. Read your Bible. That's a place to get faith. Pray, be in Scripture, be in the Word daily.
Mm.
Right. So we have that here. We have that also with other teachings that come into the church. Enneagram.
Yeah, yeah,
We've had several. Marcia and I have had a lot of people who've contacted us who, in some cases, they had been in, I don't know, Wicca, for example.
yeah.
And then they had come to the faith. They left that. They come to a church, and what do they discover? As they're doing the very things in the church that they were doing as New Agers, as Wiccans.
Wow.
And now they're totally confused. How do I know to trust anybody?
Right.
Right? That's a big question. So you have this with the NAR music seeping in. You have it with Christian publishers. It's seeping in through there
Yeah.
because they don't have any checkers. Is what is being published by us, whether it's music or books or periodicals, being theologically vetted. Most of the time, it is not.
Right, right. And that what they see, though, is the success of the big name celebrity pastors who are bringing these things. Like Kevin Copeland, has the multi-million-dollar airplane that, or I think he has two of them now, that his congregants paid for. You
Well,
got,
you might catch demons in those.
That's right. Yeah.
People, you don't want demons jumping out of people into Kenneth Copeland. It's okay if they jump into people like me and you,
Yeah.
or the people who paid for that airplane, but not him.
Yeah. Well, I beg to differ on the demons jumping into him, but that's, might
Yeah.
be construed as mean, but
They might
yeah,
they might have jumped out of him, but we're not too sure. But
when you watch his, video clips of him interacting with people, there is something that is I have to turn away. I can't watch or listen. It's very disturbing to me. So, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's if we have time, I'd like to do something that comes from my friend Dr. Donald Williams. He has an excellent book. We've recommended it to several churches. We think that church leadership should go through the book together. It's called 95 Theses for a New Reformation. Very good. And he's got a chapter on worship wars. Let's see if I can bring this up here, which I think is helpful. And he creates 5 theses for each of his topics. And this one starts out like this. There goes screen share. Worship wars. What often passes for worship today would not have been recognized as such by our ancestors. We could just have one thesis here. Christian worship in its music should preserve the best of the old and support the best of the new. But we need criteria to discern what the best is. Here are 5. None of them have to do with the music being new or old. See, this is important. So when we talk about music, we're not talking about how old it is, if it's
Right.
new or not new. We're not talking about beat. We're talking about something very different than that. The text sung must reflect biblical truth. This is a simple application to worship of sola scriptura. So the lyrics that we are singing should be biblically sound. We should be using the Reformation idea of sola scriptura.
Yeah.
Scripture takes precedence in all of this. Are we glorifying God? Is it conveying biblical truth?
Well, what is worship?
It is ascribing worth to the Father, to God.
Right. And so I was substitute teaching in a Christian high school once, and they actually had a worship class that I was substituting in, and I was, as a substitute, she didn't have a lesson plan for the day, so I kind of was winging it. And I asked the kids what they did, and sometimes we watch videos, and I said, okay, well, why don't you put one on? And there was this worship service, and I paused at the middle. I says, so what are they doing? And they go, they're worshiping. Who are they doing it for? I mean, it's like, I can tell they're really, really having an emotional experience. Who's that for?
Right.
It's like, I started just asking them questions. Okay, so what is, and then I said, worship comes from the word worthy. It used to be pronounced worthship. In other words, we have a verse in the Bible, worthy is the lamb that was slain. And that's kind of the epitome of worship, declaring the worthiness of God. Are they doing that? I mean, some of the lyrics are maybe doing that, but a lot of it is, oh, I feel so good because, you're near me. It's like you hear a lot of me in these verses, don't you? You hear a lot of I and me and
you have these kind of Jesus is my boyfriend songs.
Right. And it's like it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of about God, but it's really more about my experience of God rather than him and what he did for me. And he can't say 100%. I mean, yes, they do mingle that in there, but even the part that they ascribe to God ends up serving my emotions.
Yeah, that's true. And how many times have you been, just starting to sing the songs, and a worship leader will say, now this next song, I really want you to let these words wash over you and have you feel, and I've heard this before.
Yeah.
And so back in the day, before I knew what any of this was about, I really wanted to get into the emotional aspect of this and
Mhm.
feel, and one time I think the guy who was running the lights, he had them on full, the house lights were on full, and how can I be sweetly broken if the house lights are on full? I actually
Right.
felt that, it's like, oh boy.
Maybe it's not about the words washing over you. Maybe it's about you just believing them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I think that's what the reformers would have
Yeah.
wanted. They would have said, it's really about faith and faith in the promises. Are the promises, are God's promises in these hymns that we're singing, or is it just, oh, you love me so much? And
Yeah.
there's a lot to be said about. And I don't want to go to an extreme, because even the Psalms contain an element, a huge element sometimes, of personal
Right.
emotion, introspection,
Yeah.
but the Psalms, I think the Psalms were designed, because they have so many that are about depression and things like that. I think they were designed to teach us that we can come to God in any condition, no matter what our mental state. And yet,
Right.
what you hear at so many churches is, I want you to leave all that stuff at the door.
Mm.
Just leave it at the door and come and worship God. Well, no, the psalmist didn't leave it at the door. They took it
No.
in, and they
Yeah.
went, and they stuck it under God's nose. So it's
Right.
like, that's there for a reason. And
Yeah.
so it's because God expects us to come, not faking it, not trying to achieve a new plateau in emotions.
Right. And you may have, I mean, there are some hymns that I just break me up.
Yeah.
And I get weepy because of the lyrics, the song itself, not
The
because of
truths,
some contrived.
the truths that it proclaims, and sometimes you almost feel like, well, is my faith up to this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes, of course, the lyrics do go overboard. But
Okay. Second, let's do second here.
second,
B, the text song should reflect theological profundity. They should be neither simplistic nor unnecessarily difficult, but should promote the worship of a transcendent and holy God understood in the specific terms in which he has revealed himself to us. Focused on him, not on our feelings. Everything we just were talking about. C, the text song should reflect poetic richness. My God must have my best, even all I had. George Herbert put that. So we are talking to God, reflecting back to him in the lyrics, the things that he read about in Scripture. Now we have that in Psalms. We were just talking about that, where we have some Psalms where David starts off with things like, "All right, God, I don't know what gives here, but everyone I'm watching, they're just prospering. They're going off like nothing happened. I'm miserable. I don't like being miserable, and it feels like you've abandoned me." And then you start watching him. It's really interesting as he begins turning and going, "Oh yeah, but I remember going with the throng. I remember," and he starts
Yeah.
then praising God in spite of his circumstances. But it's a transition that happens, and I think our music can do that with us.
Yes. And I want to go back to the first couple of points about the emotional. There is nothing wrong with having an emotional
no,
reaction to the truth of God's word. So I just wanted to make sure that your listeners aren't hearing, "Oh, any emotion is bad," because that's
no.
not true either.
Yeah,
When you hear those
you
songs,
should. Yeah, I mean, there's that old train illustration: facts, faith, feelings, and
yeah,
feelings should follow your faith in the facts. But it's, and yeah, I mean, there's all the Psalms talk about rejoicing and things like that. We want to do that, but it's not. The goal is to declare the worthiness of God. That
Right.
is what should.
Right.
That's what we should delight in, and that's what should be the source of our joy, not the pursuit of feelings.
right.
It's you can make that mistake easily. So.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. D. The settings of the text should manifest musical beauty, as Luther pertinently is supposed to have asked, why should the devil have all of the good music? Uh, it should be good music, good settings, good text. They all go together. Musical beauty. Uh, we're not talking about whether it should be chamber music or something. Even banjos could be used. Yeah, we're not talking about style. We're talking about the content of the piece.
Yeah.
And then last, there should be good fit between the text and its musical setting. These are the criteria of excellence in music worship. If contemporary hymns meet them, so be it. But to ignore the heritage of the church that has already been sifted and weeded is folly. Preserve the best of the old and support the best of the new.
Mm.
That's from 95 Thesis for a New Reformation Roadmap for Post-Evangelical Christianity by Donald T. Williams. He does an excellent job with that.
I'm gonna have to
Uh,
pick that one up.
yeah, we've taken a couple of groups through this several times actually, because it's very important and it helps leadership of churches understand here's what's really needed in a church to be spiritually successful. May not grow your numbers, but spiritually successful. And we've seen in our little church, it's been kind of fun to watch here over the last 2 years, let's say, is we've had an influx of Gen Z.
Yeah, we have two.
That's
Yeah, Ron and I
fantastic.
talked about that. It's really, and they're leading worship. And you know what they're picking?
The
They're
hymns.
picking some new stuff, but the hymns.
Oh, isn't that
We're
great?
seeing
Wow.
that too, and I've been looking online about that, and there is other people have noticed it. There's, I cringe sometimes. I've been in a lot of different churches for different reasons at different times, and about 10 years ago, I was at our local version of a mega church. It's pretty big. It's not huge, but they had a separate building for the youth to
Mm,
worship in.
yeah.
And I get in there, and the sermon is going to be displayed on a screen from the main building when it starts. But in the meantime, we're gonna hear all basically rock music. And I'm looking up, all the musicians are like boomers
Mm.
or Gen X.
Yes.
I mean, they're gray, and it's like, and I'm looking around, and it's like most of the people in the chairs are in that age group. I think they're there to try to get their kids to sit with them, but for some reason, they kept the malt shop open down the hall, and like half the kids were over there drinking milkshakes,
Mm,
And I'm thinking, what is this? Now, I don't know
yeah.
if this is typical, but I do think you tend to see sometimes you might have a band leader who is like around the age of the kids or closer, and then some of the musicians are like, no wonder they don't want to be here. No wonder the kids don't. I mean, just the optics are like,
Yeah.
this is, and now we are seeing, like, we have a leader who is under 30, who's a relatively new Christian, who actually is a musician. He is a
Mm,
professional musician. He still plays a guitar for a local band that does a lot of gigs.
mhm,
And he says, I want the hymns.
mm.
I want them rooted in the truth. I played all this music for since I was a kid, and I, he should be the kind of guy who, well, this is his kind of music. No, he wants something grounded in this new truth that he just discovered.
Isn't that something? And to your point about that, I think there was a recent Barna poll that actually showed that that Gen Z, Gen X generation is coming around, especially the young men, and they don't want the smoke machines. They don't
Right.
want the rock concerts anymore. They want good sound theology, and they're saying that in these polls,
Yeah.
and it's so exciting to see.
Well, what you win them with is what you win them to.
Yeah,
And if you win them with, I mean, these are usually people who were won just by the word, the
yeah,
word being taught and
Right,
preached,
right.
and they weren't won by the music. So they want more of that. That's what they were won with and won to. So
mm,
yeah,
Right. We've got
fantastic.
a thing that would just kind of happen. I've had several of the Gen Zers come to me and say, can we come over to your house? We have some questions to ask. And so
Hmm.
I'd have them over for dinner, and then that became every like 4 to 6 weeks we did that. Now we just call it the gathering.
Hmm.
And it's about 8 to 10 that come and just want to bombard us with questions.
Hmm.
That's great.
It's amazing. So, and I read a study today that Bible reading has gone up dramatically. Now, Gen Zers are reading the Bible more frequently than boomers are.
Hmm.
42% of Gen Zers are reading the Bible daily.
Wow. That's
It's a,
fantastic. Yeah.
it is, yeah. So,
Hmm.
Ron, this has been great. I'm glad we covered a lot of material.
When you say my name, I thought you're telling me to. You said Ron. When I hear Ron at 10 after the hour, I'm thinking, oh, is that what am I doing? Am I going to do the
Walk us out here.
Okay, let's give credit to whom credit is due. Our resident cult leader profiler is Neil before me. Our wardrobe manager is See How It Fits You. Culinary services are provided by Chef Ham and Cheese. Our tinfoil hat provisioner is Just in Case. Jehovah's Witnesses coverage comes from Armageddon, and Dia Poser, our Mormon archives manager, is Polygamous. Our liberal denominations bureau chief is Lucy Goosey. Our transgender issues coverage comes from Ben Hur. Special correspondent for cults based on the Hindenburg disaster and flying turkeys, Ode to Humanity. Our fact-checking supervisor is Yolande Cohen. Technical assistance comes through Murphy Research. Our legal advisors are the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham and Howe. Our grievance resolution director is Giovanna Pisami. Our director of privacy assurance is Wiretapping. And original idea sourcing comes from Drew A. Blank. The Unknown Webcast is a production of Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. in cooperation with Emergency Manicure Productions, both of whom are solely responsible for this content, although you will never be able to prove that in a court of law. No? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Never happened.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. So everyone out there, adios.